The morning sun streamed through the kitchen blinds as 12-year-old Michael folded the birthday card from his grandmother and carefully tucked the check inside his pocket. It was the largest amount of money anyone had ever given him, $500, and he couldn't stop thinking about all the things he could do with it. His mother Diana watched him from across the breakfast table with a smile. She wasn't just any mom. She was the kind of woman whose name appeared in business magazines and whose picture hung in the main lobby of the Thompson Financial headquarters downtown. As the CEO of a growing financial technology company, she believed in teaching her son about money early. "So, what's your plan for that check?" Diana asked, sipping her coffee. "Have you thought about it?" Michael nodded eagerly. "I want to buy that new gaming system, and maybe some sneakers." Diana raised an eyebrow. "That would be gone in a day. What about putting some away for later?" "Like in my drawer?" Michael asked, reaching for another piece of toast. Diana laughed, the kind of warm laugh that filled their home on good mornings like this one. "No, honey. I mean in a bank. You're old enough now to have your own savings account." Michael's eyes widened. "My own account? With a card and everything?" "Yes, with a youth debit card that you can use when we approve purchases. But more importantly, you'll learn how money grows when you save it." Diana stood up and carried her plate to the sink. "In fact, I think you should open it yourself." "By myself?" Michael's voice cracked slightly. "I'll drive you to the bank on my way to work, but you should go in alone. Consider it your first adult financial step." Diana checked her watch. "I can take a late morning conference call from the parking lot while you handle the transaction." Michael sat up straighter, his chest puffing with pride at being trusted with such an important task. His mother had always told him that in her world, knowing about money was as important as knowing how to read. "What should I wear?" he asked, suddenly concerned about looking the part. Diana smiled. "Your nice blue button-up and those khaki pants we got last month. Banking is still a place where first impressions matter." Half an hour later, Michael stood before the bathroom mirror, carefully combing his hair. He had chosen his neatest shirt and pressed pants, just like his mother suggested. He even polished his shoes, something he usually complained about doing. "Don't forget your ID card," Diana called from the hallway. "Banks need identification, even for young people." Michael grabbed his school ID and slipped it into his pocket alongside the check. He practiced what he would say. "Good morning. I'd like to open a youth savings account, please." The words felt grown up in his mouth. Before leaving, Diana sat him down at the kitchen table one more time, reviewing what would happen at the bank. "They'll ask for your ID and the check. They'll need my information too since you're a minor. I've written it all down for you. They might ask where you got the money." "From Grandma," Michael said confidently. "That's right. Just be polite, speak clearly, and don't be intimidated. Remember, banks work for their customers, not the other way around." As they drove to the National Community Bank, Michael repeated the steps in his head. His mother had taught him that preparation prevents mistakes. She built her whole career on being more prepared than everyone else in the room. "Are you nervous?" Diana asked, glancing away from the road briefly. Michael thought about it before answering. "A little, but mostly excited." "That's how it should feel when you're doing something new that matters," she replied. "I still get that feeling before big meetings." They pulled into the bank parking lot, and Diana found a spot near the entrance. "I'll be right here on my call. Text me if you need anything, but try to handle it yourself first." She gave him a reassuring smile. "This is your moment." Michael nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The bank building loomed larger than it had ever seemed before when he'd visited with his mother. But today, he wasn't just tagging along. Today, he was a customer, walking through those heavy glass doors on his own, ready to join the world of people who managed their own money. Michael pushed through the heavy glass doors of National Community Bank, immediately hit by the cool air inside. The bank smelled like paper and something else he couldn't quite name, maybe furniture polish or the perfume worn by the woman who held the door for him with a quick smile. For a Tuesday morning, the place was surprisingly busy. A line of people stretched from the teller windows, some checking their phones, others staring blankly ahead. Michael noticed how different everyone looked: an old man with a cane, a woman in scrubs probably heading to work after her errand, a construction worker still wearing his dusty boots. "Welcome to National Community Bank," said a greeter near the entrance. "Do you need help finding something today?" Michael straightened his shoulders the way his mother did before important meetings. "I'm here to open a youth savings account," he said, proud of how steady his voice sounded. The greeter pointed him toward a small machine with a screen. "You'll need to take a number. When they call it, you can go to the next available teller." Michael pressed the button and the machine spat out a small paper slip with 43 printed on it. The digital display above the teller windows currently showed 29. With a small sigh, he found an empty chair in the waiting area and sat down, his grandmother's check safely tucked in his pocket. While waiting, Michael observed how adults acted in the bank. Most spoke in hushed tones, as if they were in a library instead of a place of business. Some seemed impatient, tapping their feet or checking the time. Others chatted with the tellers like old friends. A boy about his age came in with his father, but they went straight to an office in the back without taking a number. Michael wondered if that's what would have happened if his mother had come inside with him instead of waiting in the car on her conference call. The digital display changed slowly. 30, 31, 32. Michael pulled out his phone to text his mother an update. "Still waiting. They're on number 32 and I'm 43. His mother replied almost immediately. Perfect opportunity to practice patience. "Banking involves a lot of waiting. How are you feeling?" "Nervous but okay," he typed back, then added a thumbs-up emoji to show he wasn't too worried. Another 10 minutes passed. Michael studied the posters on the walls advertising home loans and retirement accounts. Words like APY and compound interest reminded him of the financial lessons his mother had been teaching him since he was 9. He noticed a security guard watching him. When Michael smiled, the guard didn't smile back. Instead, he seemed to study Michael more carefully, which made the boy suddenly aware of being the only kid in the bank without an adult. "Number 43, called an electronic voice finally. The display flashed his number, and Michael jumped to his feet, straightening his blue button-up shirt and walking confidently toward the open teller window. The woman behind the counter had blonde hair pulled back tightly and wore a navy blue blazer with the bank's logo. Her nameplate read Ms. Reynolds. She didn't look up immediately when Michael approached, finishing something on her computer first. "Good morning," Michael said, remembering his mother's advice about making a good first impression. Ms. Reynolds looked up, her expression changing slightly when she saw him, a quick narrowing of the eyes, a small adjustment in her posture. "Hello," she said, her voice noticeably cooler than it had been with the previous customer. "How can I help you today?" Michael placed his school ID on the counter. "I'd like to open a youth savings account, please. I have a check to deposit." He touched the pocket where his grandmother's check sat, feeling a flutter of excitement despite Ms. Reynolds' uninviting demeanor. "Are you here with a parent or guardian?" she asked, not reaching for his ID. "My mother is outside on a business call. She wanted me to do this myself," Michael explained, remembering how proud his mother had looked when she suggested he handle this on his own. "She gave me all her information to list on the forms." Ms. Reynolds' fingers tapped on her keyboard, her eyes moving between Michael and her screen. "And this check you want to deposit, where did it come from?" "It's a birthday gift from my grandmother," Michael answered, carefully removing the check from his pocket and placing it on the counter beside his ID. The teller didn't touch it. Instead, she glanced toward her supervisor's office, then back at Michael. Something in her expression made his stomach tighten with unease. The confidence he felt walking through the doors began to fade, replaced by a growing sense that something wasn't right. "Just one moment," Ms. Reynolds said, her voice artificially pleasant now. "I need to verify a few things before we proceed." Ms. Reynolds stared at Michael's check like it might bite her. She held it by the corners, turning it over and examining the signature with narrowed eyes. The longer she studied it, the hotter Michael's face felt. $500 is quite a lot of money for someone your age, she said finally, her voice so quiet that Michael had to lean forward to hear her. "Your grandmother gave you this, you said?" Michael nodded. "Yes, ma'am. For my 12th birthday. And she wrote this check directly to you?" Ms. Reynolds' eyebrow lifted in a way that made Michael feel like he'd done something wrong, though he couldn't figure out what. "Yes, my mom taught me how to endorse it on the back. See?" He pointed to where he had carefully signed his name in blue ink, just as his mother had shown him. Ms. Reynolds ignored his explanation. "Wait here," she said sharply, taking his check and ID with her as she walked to a desk at the back of the teller area. She leaned down to whisper something to an older man in a dark suit who glanced over at Michael with the same suspicious look the security guard had given him earlier. Michael's stomach twisted into knots. He looked around, noticing that several people in line behind him were watching the scene unfold. A woman with shopping bags gave him a sympathetic smile, but most just stared, making him wish he could disappear into the polished marble floor. The man in the suit approached the counter, Michael's check and ID in his hand. His nameplate identified him as Mr. Wilson, branch manager. "Young man," Mr. Wilson began, his voice loud enough that people at nearby teller windows turned to look. "Where did you get this check?" Michael swallowed hard, confused about why he was being asked the same question again. "From my grandmother, for my birthday." "And do you have any way to prove that?" "Perhaps we could call your grandmother to confirm." Mr. Wilson's tone suggested he didn't believe a word Michael was saying. "She lives in Atlanta," Michael said quietly. "But my mom is just outside in the car. She can confirm everything." Mr. Wilson exchanged glances with Ms. Reynolds. "Convenient that your mother didn't come in with you, isn't it?" Heat flooded Michael's face, but this time it wasn't embarrassment, it was anger. "She's on an important work call. She wanted me to do this by myself because I'm old enough to learn about banking." An older customer in line spoke up. "What's the problem here?" "The boy's just trying to open an account." Mr. Wilson ignored the comment. "We have procedures we need to follow when we encounter unusual situations. I'm going to need to verify the authenticity of this check." "It's not unusual," Michael protested, his voice cracking slightly. "It's just a birthday gift." "Please step aside and wait in that chair over there." Mr. Wilson pointed to a seat near his office. "This won't take long if everything is legitimate." The way he said legitimate made Michael's stomach hurt. He'd never felt so small, so instantly judged. As he walked to the chair, he heard Ms. Reynolds mumble something to the next customer about these kids these days, and probably not even his check. From his seat, Michael watched as other customers were served quickly and efficiently. A white boy about his age came in with his father, and Ms. Reynolds smiled broadly at them as they opened what appeared to be the exact same type of account Michael had requested. They were in and out in 15 minutes. Michael had been waiting for nearly 25 minutes when he overheard Mr. Wilson on the phone, supposedly verifying his check. "Yes, we have a young man here, attempting to deposit a check for $500. No ID other than a school card. Claims it's from his grandmother. No adult with him." Each word felt like a tiny needle. Michael had done everything right, dressed properly, spoken politely, brought the right documentation, yet they were treating him like he tried to rob the place. He watched the clock on the wall tick by another 5 minutes. The security guard had positioned himself closer now, occasionally glancing over as if Michael might suddenly make a break for the door. 2 bank employees whispered behind the counter, looking in his direction and then quickly away when they noticed him watching. A cold feeling settled in Michael's chest as he realized what was happening. His mother had talked about this, how people sometimes got treated differently based on how they looked. He'd heard the stories but hadn't really understood until now, sitting alone in this bank, being treated like a criminal for trying to deposit his birthday money. With trembling fingers, Michael pulled out his phone and opened his text messages. He hadn't wanted to bother his mother during her conference call, had wanted to prove he could handle this on his own. But this was different. This wasn't about him not being capable. This was about them not giving him a chance. "Mom," he typed, "something's wrong. They took my check and ID and are making me wait. They don't believe it's my money and keep asking the same questions over and over. The manager is on the phone talking about me. I think I need help." He hesitated before hitting send, hating that he couldn't handle this himself, hating even more the reason why. Then he pressed the button and watched the message go through, the status changing to delivered almost instantly. Michael sat up straighter in his chair, trying to hold on to his dignity while feeling the weight of suspicious stares from around the bank lobby. He knew his mother would come, and when she did, everything would change. Diana was in the middle of explaining quarterly projections to her executive team when her phone vibrated. She rarely checked messages during important calls, but something made her glance down at the screen. When she saw Michael's text, her heart dropped. "I apologize, but I need to step away for a family emergency," she said calmly into the phone. "Thomas, please continue with the Asia market overview. I'll rejoin shortly." She ended the call before anyone could object. Diana grabbed her purse and briefcase, not bothering to organize the papers scattered across the passenger seat. The short walk from the parking lot to the bank entrance felt like miles. Through the glass doors, she could see Michael sitting alone in a chair, his shoulders slumped forward, looking smaller than he had that morning. The security guard straightened up as Diana entered, perhaps noticing her tailored pantsuit and the purposeful click of her heels against the marble floor. She walked directly to Michael, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. Michael looked up, relief washing over his face. "They think I stole the check," he whispered. "They've been calling people to check if it's real." Diana's expression hardened, but she kept her voice calm for Michael's sake. "Where are your ID and the check now?" "The manager has them. That man over there." Michael pointed toward Mr. Wilson, who was still on the phone in his glass-walled office. "Stay here," Diana said, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. She walked toward the manager's office, her back straight, her chin lifted. The same posture she used when facing difficult board members. She knocked once on the glass door and entered without waiting for permission. Mr. Wilson looked up, startled, the phone still pressed to his ear. "I'll call you back," he said hurriedly, putting the receiver down. "Ma'am, this area is for staff only." "I'm Diana Johnson," she interrupted, her voice controlled but firm. "That boy you've kept waiting for nearly half an hour is my son. I believe you have his identification and his birthday check from his grandmother." Mr. Wilson's expression flickered with uncertainty. "Mrs. Johnson, we have procedures that—" "It's Miss Johnson," Diana corrected him. "And I'm well aware of banking procedures. What I'm not aware of is why opening a youth savings account requires a criminal investigation." She extended her hand, palm up. "My son's ID and check, please." Mr. Wilson hesitated but slid the items across his desk. "We were simply verifying." "Did you verify the identity of the young white boy who came in with his father 20 minutes ago?" Diana asked, tucking Michael's belongings into her purse. "The one who opened an account and left while my son was still sitting here being treated like a criminal." "That was different," Mr. Wilson stammered. "The father was present? I was 50 feet away in the parking lot. My son told your teller that. Instead of asking him to get me, you chose to assume the worst." Diana's voice remained measured, but her eyes never left the manager's face. "I'd like to speak with your regional director." The manager's face paled slightly. "That won't be necessary, Ms. Johnson. I apologize for any misunderstanding. We can process your son's account right away." "This wasn't a misunderstanding," Diana said, "and will no longer be opening an account here today." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "One more thing, Mr. Wilson. Do you know who your bank's corporate clients are?" He shook his head, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Perhaps you should find out before you make assumptions about people based on their appearance." Diana pulled a business card from her purse and placed it on his desk. "My executive assistant will be expecting a call from your regional director by tomorrow morning." As she turned away, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Wilson's face as he read her card. CEO, Thompson Financial Technologies. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Diana walked back to Michael, who had been watching the entire exchange. The lobby had grown quieter, customers and employees alike sensing that something significant was happening. "Let's go," she said softly, offering her hand. Michael stood up, looking uncertain. "But what about my account?" "We'll find a better bank," Diana replied, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "One that treats all its customers with respect, regardless of their age or the color of their skin." As they walked toward the exit, Ms. Reynolds called out from behind her counter. "Ms. Johnson, please, if you reconsider." Diana paused, turning to face the teller whose dismissive attitude had started this whole ordeal. "My son came in here excited to take his first step into financial independence. Instead, you taught him a different lesson entirely." The security guard hurried to open the door for them, his earlier suspicion replaced by obvious embarrassment. Diana nodded politely as they passed. In the parking lot, Michael finally spoke. "I'm sorry, Mom. I messed up." Diana stopped walking and knelt to meet his eyes, despite her expensive suit and the watching bank employees visible through the windows. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. Some people see only what they expect to see, not what's actually in front of them." Michael nodded, but his eyes remained downcast. "I really wanted to do it by myself." "You did everything right," Diana said firmly. "The failure today wasn't yours, and what you just witnessed in there, that's how change happens, when people are held accountable." As they got into the car, Michael looked back at the bank. Through the glass doors, he could see Mr. Wilson on the phone again, this time with a very different expression on his face. "Mom," Michael asked quietly as she started the engine, "are you really not going to let me open an account?" Diana smiled, the tension in her face softening. "Oh, we're definitely opening you an account, just not here. And when we do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and why they should be honored to have you as a customer." The regional director of National Community Bank, Peter Collins, was enjoying his lunch when his cell phone rang. Recognizing the number of the downtown branch, he almost let it go to voicemail. Branch managers rarely called unless there was a problem, and problems during lunch were particularly unwelcome. With a sigh, he answered. "Collins speaking." "Sir, this is Wilson from the downtown branch," came the nervous voice. "We have a situation." 20 minutes later, Peter rushed through the bank's employee entrance, straightening his tie. Mr. Wilson was waiting, his forehead shiny with sweat, despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. "Tell me again," Peter said as they walked toward the conference room. "You're saying Diana Johnson was in our bank?" "The Diana Johnson. Her son came in to open an account," Mr. Wilson explained, his words tumbling out quickly. "He had a large check. We followed procedure for unaccompanied minors with suspicious transactions." Peter stopped walking, defined suspicious. Mr. Wilson hesitated. The amount was significant, and he only had a school ID. "And?" Peter pressed, sensing there was more. "And nothing else," Mr. Wilson said, not meeting his eyes. "Just bank protocol." Peter had known Wilson long enough to read between the lines. He sighed and continued toward the conference room. "She's waiting?" "Her assistant called. She's coming back at 2 o'clock with her son. She specifically requested that Ms. Reynolds, myself, and you be present." Wilson swallowed hard. "And she mentioned bringing someone from their legal department." "Wonderful," Peter muttered. At precisely 2 o'clock, Diana Johnson walked through the bank's front doors. This time, she wasn't rushing in to rescue her son. This time, she was expected, and the difference was visible in everything from the staff's demeanor to the freshly brewed coffee waiting in the conference room. Michael walked beside her, looking both nervous and intrigued. Behind them followed a tall woman carrying a leather portfolio that practically screamed corporate lawyer. Peter greeted them at the entrance himself. "Ms. Johnson, thank you for coming back. I'm Peter Collins, Regional Director for National Community Bank." Diana shook his hand firmly. "This is my son, Michael, and our company's chief counsel, Linda Chen." Peter led them to the conference room where Mr. Wilson and Ms. Reynolds waited, both looking like students called to the principal's office. Once everyone was seated, Peter began with a practiced apology. "Ms. Johnson, first let me express my sincere regret for your experience this morning. That's not how we do business at National Community Bank." Diana listened politely, her expression neutral. When Peter finished, she turned to Michael. "Would you please tell Mr. Collins what happened when you came in earlier?" Michael sat up straighter, glancing at his mother for reassurance. When she nodded, he began describing his experience, the waiting, the questioning, the suspicion, the embarrassment. He spoke clearly and calmly, just as his mother had coached him during lunch. As Michael talked, Ms. Reynolds stared at the table, her face reddening. Mr. Wilson repeatedly adjusted his tie. "Thank you, Michael," Diana said when he finished. She turned back to Peter. "That's what happened. Not a misunderstanding or a simple case of following protocol. My son was profiled." Peter shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Johnson, I assure you we take these allegations very seriously." "They're not allegations," Diana corrected him. "They're facts. And I'm not here for assurances." Linda Chen opened her portfolio. National Community Bank processes over $4 million in transactions daily for Thompson Financial Technologies. We're also considering your institution for handling our new international payment platform, which would bring an additional $12 million in processing fees annually. The air in the room seemed to thin. Peter looked at Diana with new understanding. She wasn't just any angry mother, she was potentially their largest corporate client. But this isn't about business, Diana continued. This is about my son walking into this bank, excited to open his first account, and being treated like a criminal because of assumptions made based on his appearance. She leaned forward. Let me be clear. I'm not interested in special treatment. I'm interested in equal treatment. The kind every customer deserves, whether they're the son of a CEO or not. Michael watched his mother with wide eyes. He'd seen her in business mode before, on video calls at home or when dropping by her office, but never like this, never wielding her position to address something so personal. What exactly are you requesting, Ms. Johnson? Peter asked, his corporate smile replaced by genuine concern. 3 things, Diana replied without hesitation. First, a review of your policies regarding unaccompanied minors and what constitutes suspicious transactions. Second, comprehensive bias training for all customer-facing staff. Third, specific consequences for the treatment my son received today. Linda slid a document across the table. We've outlined the proposed changes in detail. Peter glanced at the document, then at Mr. Wilson, who seemed to be trying to make himself as small as possible. Ms. Reynolds, Diana said suddenly, turning to the teller who had first questioned Michael, may I ask you something? The teller looked up, startled at being directly addressed. Yes, ma'am. What made you suspicious of my son's check? Ms. Reynolds opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. The amount was large for someone his age. $500? Diana raised an eyebrow. Is that typically considered a large deposit at this bank? No, but... But what? Diana pressed, her voice still calm but insistent. He was alone, Ms. Reynolds finished weakly. So are many of your customers, Diana pointed out, including the teenage boy who came in with his father while my son was waiting. The one who was allowed to open his account without a phone call to verify his identity. The room fell silent. Even Peter seemed at a loss for words. Michael, Diana said, turning to her son, is there anything you'd like to add? Michael looked around the table at the bank officials, his eyes finally settling on Ms. Reynolds. I just wanted to start saving for college, he said simply. That's all. The simplicity of his statement hung in the air, making the morning's events seem even more absurd. Peter Collins cleared his throat, visibly moved. Ms. Johnson, he said finally, on behalf of National Community Bank, I accept your terms without reservation. The actions taken today were unacceptable, and we will take immediate steps to address them. He turned to Michael. Young man, I owe you a personal apology. You deserved better from us, much better. Diana nodded, satisfied but not celebratory. This wasn't a victory to her, it was a correction, a step toward what should have been the standard all along. As they prepared to leave, Peter asked hesitantly, would you still consider allowing Michael to open his account with us? Under my personal supervision, of course. Diana looked at her son. That's Michael's decision now. 1 week after the incident at National Community Bank, the employees gathered in the main branch's conference room for an unscheduled morning meeting. Rumors had been flying since Michael and his mother's visit, growing more elaborate with each retelling. Some said the bank was being sued. Others whispered about branches closing. Peter Collins stood at the front of the room, waiting for everyone to settle. The usual chatter that preceded these meetings was noticeably absent. Instead, the staff watched him with wary eyes, sensing that whatever was coming wouldn't be the typical quarterly update. Thank you all for coming, Peter began, his voice more serious than usual. By now, most of you have heard about what happened last week. Rather than let rumors continue, I want to address it directly. He explained the situation without naming Michael or his mother, but described how a young customer had been treated with unwarranted suspicion and disrespect. This wasn't just poor customer service, Peter said firmly. It was discrimination. And while it involved only a few staff members directly, it reflects on all of us and the culture we've created here. From the back of the room, someone raised a hand. Is it true the customer was the son of some big CEO? Peter nodded. Yes, though that shouldn't matter. Every person who walks through our doors deserves the same level of respect and service. That's actually why I called this meeting. He gestured toward the door as a woman entered, carrying a laptop and a stack of folders. This is Dr. Taylor from the Center for Workplace Equality. Starting today, every employee at every level of this bank will participate in comprehensive bias training. A collective groan rippled through the room. This isn't just another corporate exercise, Peter added sharply. This is about our survival as a business. One incident of discrimination cost us a major corporate client worth millions in annual revenue. But more importantly, it cost a 12-year-old boy his dignity and his trust in our institution. The room fell silent. There will be other changes as well, Peter continued. We're revising our policies on what constitutes suspicious transactions. We're implementing a customer feedback system specifically focused on equal treatment. And yes, there will be consequences for those directly involved in last week's incident. At that moment, Mr. Wilson slipped into the room, taking a seat near the back. The staff exchanged glances, noticing his usual manager's badge was missing. Dr. Taylor stepped forward, opening her laptop. Before we begin, I'd like you all to know that someone will be joining us for part of today's session. Someone with a unique perspective on why this work matters. The door opened again, and Diana Johnson walked in. The room stirred with whispers of recognition from those who had witnessed the confrontation the previous week. "Thank you for having me," Diana said, taking a position beside Peter. "I'm not here to point fingers or assign blame. I'm here because what happened to my son isn't unique or rare. It happens every day to people who don't have the advantage of a mother with corporate influence." She looked around the room, making eye contact with several employees. "My son asked me why I wasn't angrier about what happened. The truth is, I was furious. But anger alone doesn't create change. Action does." Diana explained that Thompson Financial Technologies was developing a nationwide financial literacy program for young people with a special emphasis on communities often overlooked by traditional banking. "And despite what happened, National Community Bank will be our partner in this initiative," she announced, causing another wave of whispers. "Because meaningful change happens from within systems, not outside them." Peter stepped forward again. "Ms. Johnson and her company are giving us a second chance. A chance to be better. Not just for high-profile customers, but for everyone." As Dr. Taylor began setting up her presentation, Diana slipped out to the lobby where Michael was waiting, flipping through a finance magazine. "How'd it go?" he asked, looking up. "Good," Diana replied, sitting beside him. They seemed receptive. Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Do you really think it will make a difference?" "For some of them, yes," Diana said honestly. "For others, maybe not, but each mind that changes matters." Michael considered this. "Ms. Reynolds isn't here today." "No," Diana confirmed. "She's been transferred to a non-customer-facing position until she completes additional training." Michael looked down at his hands. "I didn't want her to lose her job." "You didn't cause any of this," Diana reminded him gently. Their actions did. A new teller approached them, her smile nervous but genuine. "Ms. Johnson?" "Mr. Collins asked if you and your son would be available to meet with him after the training session. There's someone he'd like you to meet." Diana checked her watch. "We can stay a little longer," she agreed, then turned to Michael. "Is that okay with you?" Michael nodded but seemed distracted. "What are you thinking about?" Diana asked as the teller walked away. "I was just wondering," Michael said slowly, "about all the kids who don't have moms who run companies. What happens to them when stuff like this happens?" Diana felt a swell of pride mixed with sadness. That's exactly the right question to be asking, and it's why we're not just letting this go. She pulled out her phone and showed Michael an email. "This is from a local news reporter. She wants to do a story about what happened to you and about the new program we're developing with the bank." Michael's eyes widened. "You mean like on TV?" "Only if you're comfortable with it," Diana assured him. "Your face wouldn't be shown, and they wouldn't use your real name." Michael thought about it for a long moment. Would it help other kids? Kids who don't have moms who can make the bank listen? Diana nodded. "It might." "Then I want to do it," Michael decided. "But I have one condition." "What's that?" Diana asked, surprised. Michael's expression was serious beyond his years. I still want to open my account. Here, so I can see if they really change. Diana studied her son's face, seeing not just determination but something deeper, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before that morning at the bank. Are you sure? She asked. There are plenty of other banks. Michael nodded. I'm sure. Because if I leave and never come back, how will I know if anything really changed? Someone has to stay and watch, right? Diana couldn't help but smile at the wisdom in his words. Her son was learning lessons far beyond basic banking, lessons about accountability and change, and the patient work of making the world better. Right, she agreed. Someone has to stay and watch. 3 months later, Michael pulled open the heavy glass doors of National Community Bank, no longer intimidated by their weight or what waited inside. The lobby had changed since his first visit. New signs hung on the walls with messages about respect and inclusion. The security guard, a different one now, gave him a friendly nod. Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson, called the teller as Michael approached. Making another deposit today? Michael smiled and placed his lawn mowing money on the counter. Yes, ma'am. $22 for my college fund. The teller, her nameplate read Miss Howard, counted the bills and updated his passbook. That puts you at $647. You're making great progress. Michael thanked her and headed for the exit, where his mother waited in the car. But before he reached the door, he'd heard someone call his name. Michael, do you have a minute? It was Peter Collins, the regional director who had become a regular presence at this branch since the incident. Michael had seen him during several of his visits, always checking in with customers and staff alike. My mother's waiting, Michael said, gesturing toward the parking lot. Just a moment, I promise. I wanted to show you something. Curious, Michael followed Peter to a wall near the entrance where a large frame hung that hadn't been there during his last visit. Inside was a certificate alongside a newspaper article with the headline, Local Bank Partners with Tech Company for Youth Financial Literacy. We got this recognition from the State Banking Association for our new programs, Peter explained. The ones that started because of you. Michael studied the certificate, feeling a strange mix of pride and discomfort. It wasn't really because of me. It absolutely was, Peter insisted. Sometimes it takes one incident to show people what's been happening all along. Your courage in coming back here, in giving us a chance to be better, that made all the difference. Michael shifted his weight from one foot to the other, not sure how to respond to such praise from an adult. Anyway, Peter continued, sensing Michael's discomfort, I thought you'd like to know that our youth accounts are up 60%. And almost half of those new young customers are from neighborhoods that historically haven't had much bank access. That's good, Michael said, genuinely impressed. Very good, Peter agreed. Oh, and Ms. Reynolds asked about you last week. Michael's stomach tightened at the mention of the teller who had first treated him with such suspicion. What did she want? She's completed her training and has been working at our call center. She asked if she could write you a letter of apology. Peter pulled an envelope from his pocket. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. Michael took the envelope cautiously. Thank you. I'll think about it. Outside, Diana was on a call but ended it quickly when Michael climbed into the passenger seat. Everything okay? She asked. You were in there a while. Michael showed her the envelope. It's from Ms. Reynolds. Diana's expression remained neutral. Are you going to read it? Maybe later, Michael decided, tucking it into his backpack. Mr. Collins also showed me an award they got for the new programs. As they drove away from the bank, Diana asked, How does it feel now? Going in there by yourself? Michael looked out the window, considering the question. Normal, I guess, but different too. Different how? Like, Michael searched for the right words. Like I'm not just a kid putting money in an account, like I'm part of making things better. Diana smiled. That's a good way to put it. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Michael spoke again. Mom, remember when you said we should do the TV interview? How many people do you think saw it? Well, it was picked up by some national outlets, Diana replied. So probably hundreds of thousands. Why? Michael fiddled with his passbook. A kid at school said his parents took him to open an account after they saw the story, and my teacher asked me to talk to our class about what happened. How do you feel about that? Nervous, Michael admitted, but kind of excited too. I've been working on what I want to say. Diana glanced at him, surprised. You have? Michael nodded. I want to tell them that sometimes bad things happen not because of something you did wrong, but because of how some people see you. And that you can be mad about it, you should be mad, but you can also use it to make things change. Diana felt her throat tighten with emotion. That sounds perfect. When they arrived home, Michael took the envelope from his backpack and set it on the kitchen table while Diana started dinner. He stared at it for several minutes before finally opening it. The letter was handwritten, the penmanship careful and deliberate. Dear Michael, there is no excuse for how I treated you that day. I spent these past months thinking about why I acted as I did, about the assumptions I made when you approached my window. The training I've received has opened my eyes, but your courage is what truly changed my heart. I have a nephew your age. When I imagined him being treated the way I treated you, I couldn't bear it. I want you to know that I am deeply sorry, and that meeting you, even under such terrible circumstances, has changed how I see the world and my place in it. You deserved better from me and from the bank. Thank you for giving us all the chance to learn and do better. Sincerely, Tanya Reynolds. Michael read the letter twice before folding it carefully and returning it to the envelope. Everything okay? Diana asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. Yeah, Michael said slowly. She actually meant it. The apology. Michael nodded. It feels good, I guess. Not like it makes what happened okay, but like something really did change. Later that evening, as Michael prepared his notes for the class presentation, he added a new section at the end. Sometimes people can learn and change, and sometimes you get to be part of that change. It doesn't erase what happened, but it can make the future different. And that matters too. He thought about how far he'd come from that first nervous morning when all he'd wanted was to deposit his birthday check. Now he had an account with over $600, a story that had reached across the country, and a voice that people actually listened to. The 12-year-old who had walked into that bank had just wanted to be treated like everyone else. The one who walked out had discovered something more powerful, the ability to help make sure everyone else was treated just like him. Not because his mother was important, but because every person who walks through those doors is important. And that, Michael decided, was the real lesson, bigger than banking, more valuable than money. That was the lesson worth sharing.